I'm a scientist, and my office is full of lab coats and fossils and brains in jars. And this is because I'm overcompensating. Because actually I'm a theorist. So what I really need to do my job is a desk and a computer. And the computer's a laptop, so really even the desk is negotiable. And this always strikes me as grossly unfair, because a real scientist's workspace, as we all know from television, ought by rights to be full of beakers and bubbling green liquids and curly glassware and, if you're lucky, monsters on slabs. But which scientists really have the best workplaces are the field biologists, right? You're one of those, and your office is like a tent in Antarctica where you're studying penguins, or it's on a cruise ship where you're spending weeks at sea tracking whales or piloting remote submersibles. And meanwhile, I've got my desk and my computer, and I'm jealous. So when an actual field biologist said to me, hey, the stuff you've been doing with termite-inspired swarm robotics has been really interesting. We ought to find some way of working together. Do you want to come visit my research site in Namibia? This was the single easiest question I have ever been asked. So for a couple weeks of my life, I got to justify my lab coat and have my place of work be a field station in the African savannah. As it turns out, there are drawbacks to going to Africa to study insects, namely the insects. Not just the ones we were there to study, those too, that's a different story by itself, but the thing about being on a field excursion is you're in the field. And it turns out that Namibia is basically made out of bugs. And not just bugs, oversized novelty bugs. We got there the first night to this field station. We walked into this remote, isolated building where we were going to be spending the next couple of weeks living and working. And we opened the door and walked into a phantasmagoria of winged insects at like this scale, covering the walls, the ceiling, the light fixtures. You go into the bedroom, antlions all over the wardrobes, the windows. You go in the bathroom, praying mantises filling the shower, all over the toilet. You go into the kitchen, you look in the sink. I don't even know what these things were, just like long abdomens pulsating unwholesomely. Long story short, basically every surface in every room was covered with enormous insects. Although, actually I exaggerate slightly, not every surface was covered because of the spiders. We'd been traveling for, I think, upwards of 48 hours at that point without sleep, and we were finally, blissfully getting to bed, because when I'm that tired, I don't care what I'm lying down on. And then my friend from lab, who'd also come on this trip with me, walks into my room with her hair visibly standing on end, and she says, I will give you $20 if you get this spider out of my room. And I rolled my eyes, to the extent I could keep them open, and picked up my boot and followed after her, grumbling, like, I know you don't like spiders, this is not the time I appreciate this, can't this possibly wait for... And then I saw what she was pointing at. Suddenly I was awake. I said, I'm not sure this boot is going to be big enough. It was, empirically. That was one of the wall crab spiders, as they're called, which are about this big and move like lightning. I mean, obviously a nightmare like that is going to move like lightning. They're also flat, so they're essentially shadows. They can effortlessly pass into cracks, behind furniture. Normally spiders don't particularly bother me. These were unsettling. And then there were the baboon spiders, so-called, apparently, because they're the approximate size and hairiness of a baboon. This was all just inside the house. Outside, the next day, I saw my first armored ground cricket. At first I thought I was looking at a rat. Oh, and then there were the dung beetles. Okay, these are amazing. Like, not only are they double handful size, but they fly. It is literally unbelievable. They're like self-propelled, buzzing softballs with terrible aim. Just zzz, bonk, thud. Outside that next night, we're sitting outside our building. It's starting to get dark, and enormous flying insects are swooping around, attracted by the light inside the house. And our host keeps going in and coming out and leaving the door standing wide open behind him. And at some point I asked him, could he please close the door when he goes through to keep the bugs out? And he gave me the smile of polite incomprehension that you get when you ask an entomologist to keep the bugs out. I mean, that's why we're in the field, right? To be immersed in our subject, our crawly, many-legged subject. And we were immersed. Sitting outside, it was dark. I didn't see the 14-inch stick insect crawling up my leg until it was in my lap. And the converse is also true. Our subject had the opportunity to be immersed in us. Which brings me, in closing, to the Mopani worms, a traditional local food. It sounds horrible until you see them and you realize just how far short of the reality your fears had fallen. Google image search this. You won't thank me. They're not actually worms, in fact, but caterpillars. Huge, fat, stripy, spiky caterpillars in a bowl. So it was really all too soon that the time came to leave this exotic, colorful field life that I had longed for and return to my usual office in Boston. Dull, pedestrian, deeply appreciated, climate-controlled, cleaning-staffed, with a sandwich shop just down the street, where the only bugs I have to deal with are the ones in my software, and I wear my lab coat when the room gets chilly.